Is that your TV, Aaron?
What do you hear?
Dudes talking.
Well, it might be some people outside because
That's
I'm
all right.
sitting outside. Should I move indoors?
Nah, don't worry about it. No, not a big deal. I mean, it's a whole new world out there. I'm going to go ahead and
Ask them to move.
Here we go. 1 second.
Digital 410 Productions proudly presents the What's in Your Head podcast.
Digitized live from the ACT Computer Studios in Cape Coral, Florida, it's the What's in Your Head podcast with your hosts Gordon and Don Abernathy.
What's up, OG5? You know, it's crazy. We're just doing things like we always do here on what's previously known as the Waterman and D-Train show. It's inconsistent. Wow, I'm gone even further now. So, Gordon, what's going on with you, friend?
I'm doing well, still working. I'm fortunately part of the essential. And yes, I do say fortunately because I do see a lot of posts out there where people sound like they don't want to be essential. Tell you what, I like making a paycheck, and I count my blessings on that every day up to this point.
Coral, Florida, from the Shoot Center here in Cape Coral. Aaron Forum, what's going on, friend?
Just another interesting day. Just taking it day by day. Things have been pretty wild for us. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster, and man, my team has done a phenomenal job. But I think what's been probably one of the more interesting things for me is just seeing the number of apparently new gun owners come in. And we've always kind of been the place, well, I say always, we've been open for 2.5 years, but you know, we have an indoor gun range gun store, and we have a pretty decent operation. And we get a lot of first-time shooters. But this type of first-time shooter is a little bit more, I guess, they have a little bit higher level of a need, because it's not infrequent for us to get someone who comes in and says, hey, I never wanted to own a gun, but I heard you guys were good people and, you were the place to go to. And it's not uncommon to hear that or to see that. Maybe someone, gets their house broken into. And so we're seeing a much higher volume of people coming in who are they know that we sell guns, and they're saying, hey, I need a gun. What do you got? Oh, you don't have exactly what I want? That one works? Okay, I'll take one of those.
How many of these first-time gun owners are surprised that the gun laws are actually in place and they work, that they can't walk out with a handgun the same day unless they have a concealed carry permit? Have you seen any people with a little bit of a sticker shock when it comes to that?
Yeah, sometimes, and certainly that's a fun thing for us to kind of like kick back, especially as people who are pro-Second Amendment, and go, ha, we told you. So I think that there is some of that certainly going on, yes. And when it does happen, it is sort of like, we told you so. But, predominantly, I think people just don't understand the process. And so it may be a combination of genuine shock and then just lack of knowing how the process works and just needing to understand, hey, how long do I have to? Because people, they really don't know. They'll ask, is there a wait? What do I do? How do I get a license? Do I need a license to buy it? All sorts of questions.
I think a lot of that may play into, and this is Gordon here, what states they may come from. So out here in Nevada, you don't even have a CCW, have to have a CCW. You can walk into a gun store typically, do your background check and walk out that day. And, we get a lot of people from California here, unfortunately, who are shocked by that. But, I like to tell them, welcome to America.
I say the same thing, actually. It's funny that you say that. I say the exact same thing in my store. I say, well, enjoy your brief stay here in America. So they're typically visiting from New York and New Jersey.
Well, to be fair to them, when you have so many different sources of media given the false information about gun laws, you hear about the guns show loopholes. They can sell guns without No. A citizen who has a single firearm can go into a gun show and sell and do what they call a straw sale and sell it from one citizen to another. But a gun vendor, someone with a booth, a gun store owner cannot just sell without background checks. But, people who aren't currently up to date because they're not gun enthusiasts, they hear so much back and forth misinformation that you can't blame them that when they find the truth out, they're a little shocked and almost put back by it.
Yeah, I think people are generally pretty influenced, especially on a topic like this, because I forget who I first heard this analogy from, but he said, if you were illiterate and couldn't read at all, but I had like a bookshelf full of books, I would be like some sort of literary genius to you, and you're none the wiser. The same is true for guns. I mean, the number of people that I talk to who say, "Oh no, my friend, he's a gun fanatic. He's this, he's that," and they hold him in such high esteem because their knowledge level is zero.
Yeah.
And oftentimes these people that they think of as being sort of like knowledgeable sources of information are very bad sources of information. So a lot of times it's just you only really know what you know. You only really know what you're exposed to.
So I had a quick question, just in differences with the lockdown situation in each state. So out in Nevada, one of the problems we're having right now with the new first-time gun owners is there's nowhere to get formalized training. All the indoor ranges are shut down. Now, we do have a big stretch of desert down off of 15 that a lot of people go to. And from what I am understanding right now, it is so packed with new people who aren't following your basic 4 rules, are staying within. There's a half a mile buffer that you have to maintain between any road and where you start firing. Yeah. That is scary. I'm not even going to go down there. I'm sure people are shooting at almost each other at this point.
No, it's something that I think is so important. And, going back to what was mentioned earlier, absolutely the media portrays things in a certain way, and people really only know what they know. And that is one fight, an information campaign, because there is absolutely a misinformation campaign going on. But at the same time, we as gun owners also have to set a really, really good example in terms of what to do and what not to do. And we have to understand that as humans, and I say this lovingly, when it comes to gun safety, I don't trust myself.
No.
Because I understand that I'm a human being and I'm far from perfect and I will make mistakes. It's only a matter of time. So what I do is when I do things like when I unload a gun, I follow a very strict procedure that has built-in redundancies that really reduces the likelihood of me making a mistake down to just such a small number. It's just very, very, very unlikely. And I do that because I'm going to make a mistake. And this is the way that I think we as gun owners should approach things like this for the Second Amendment fight too.
Absolutely.
And we repeat it and we practice it over and over where it's automatic. That's how I do it. It's systematic. It's automatic. That reduces any kind of chances of a misfire, of accidentally squeezing one off.
And Aaron brought up a very good point. We as responsible gun owners, we need to set a quality premium example. And for those you assholes who decide that it's a good idea to walk around town with an AR-15 on your shoulder because you can, yes, you can, but don't do it. All you're doing is making an ass out of yourself. It's making it harder for people like us to get firearms. It's making it harder for people like Aaron to sell firearms because you want to walk around with your damn armor light slung over your shoulder because legally you can. All you're doing is trying to get YouTube views, and you're making it harder for us to continue to own firearms. So knock it off.
If you're going to do it, don't flag everyone with your muzzle, okay?
Yes.
Just because your gun is slung doesn't mean you can flag every other person around you, because I don't know what your training level is. It might be different in a team environment where we all work together, and occasionally a barrel passes over a foot or something. But, some rando in the street with his AR-15, at least wear a sling and wear it properly.
And that's the scary thing, too, with all these last-minute panic buyers. The fact that a lot of stores, now Aaron is quite stocked up. I just went through there again the other day. But a lot of the smaller stores who may not have the wherewithal to order in advance, there are ammo shortages. I'm seeing people on Facebook up in Ohio looking for ammo. When you have an quote-unquote ammo shortage, there's not a shortage. It's just that a lot of the stores aren't getting it in the quantity they had. And so when you get these first-time gun owners, because ammo may be harder to find, they don't have the access to it so they can go out in a safe environment and get proficient with it, get proficient with their firearm. And that's the other thing that's kind of scary right now with the first-time, last-minute gun buyers.
Right, and you really, the time to, one of the special operations forces truths, or soft truths they call them, is you can't mass produce soft, right? And I think it's also true that you shouldn't try and prepare for an emergency in the middle of a crisis.
No.
I mean, it's a very difficult time oftentimes logistically to try to then prepare last minute to make yourself able to deal with the very emergency that you're experiencing. And I think that this has just been kind of a wake-up call for a lot of us in that way. And none of us, I mean, I'm not prepared 100%. I mean, it's,
You know who's getting the
plus
last
when,
laugh right now?
Rubber meets the road. Somebody may become proficient training at targets, but if it's a real situation and the adrenaline is pumping and, they haven't had the proper defensive training and tactical training, it's a different situation. It's not going to go the way they plan,
The other people's getting the last laugh right now. We're kind of talking about how, us 2A guys are kind of laughing at the first time gun, but the preppers, the ones that we thought were nuts, who used to have like the shows on History Channel, who lived in bunkers under the ground. This is kind of like their, we told you.
That are geniuses now. Now everyone's looking to them like the librarian in my earlier analogy.
Exactly.
Give us guidance on this.
Well, let's talk a little bit about it in more detail. I would imagine that a lot of the first-time gun buyers, if they have their choice, they're looking for shotguns.
A lot of them, yeah. Kind of just little things that you see. I own a gun store, gun range, but truthfully, I'm in retail. And it's a complex environment. Mm-hmm. This one just happens to be heavily regulated, low margin, and inherently dangerous. So I jokingly, lovingly say it's like the worst retail you could ever possibly get into.
Okay, I'm gonna approach the elephant in the room. How many high points and Tauruses have you been selling?
I still have a lot of Tauruses. I wish I could keep more of them in stock, especially now. The Taurus G2C is a top seller nationally.
Okay.
And that's a perfect example of what I mean by I'm in retail. I mean, I just understand better now the forces of retail than I did when we began. And you have to be seller focused. And so if you're not tuned in with what your customers want. But for the first time, it's funny you bring this up, I brought in 9mm high point carbines and sold for like $30 over cost, put them up on the wall cheap. And I think we probably sold our last one today. And I've had them for maybe 3 days, 4 days. So,
yeah, I know
that's a good seller, even though it's only $40, but the guy will buy something else while he's there usually. So,
well, and we can laugh all we want about high points, but the nice thing about the carbine is you can take it out to the range. Yes, it's ugly, but when it's shooting 9mm and you want to shoot a rifle platform and not spend inordinate amounts of money on 223s or 7.62 rounds, if you don't have an AR-22, a high point 9mm carbine is an effective, cheap way to go out and have fun and go plinking, especially if you have kids.
For sure. And one of the more interesting things too is getting into this business coming from a military background. A lot of the assumptions people made is, well, because you were, because of the job that you had, this is going to be a perfect fit for you. And that's a well-meaning, but truthfully, it's retail.
Yeah.
It is retail. So I don't sell the things in my store necessarily that only I would use. I'd go out of business in a week.
Yeah.
I mean, I try to plug into the data and just give my customers more what they want. And if you don't understand that, you won't survive in retail. You just won't, And so you give them what they want. If we sold mostly high points, buddy, I would be stocking the shelves with them. That's just retail science.
And the economy in Ohio would go through the roof because aren't those made in Bell Fountain, Gordon?
It's near there. Actually, I think it's close to where our cousin lives, Marysville.
Yeah, Marysville. Because Gordon and I are Ohio boys, and I know they're made in Ohio.
Yeah.
So one more question. You have a great YouTube channel, and you put up a video the other day titled, hey, are our gun rights here in Florida being attacked right now during the coronavirus? And the short answer was no, because luckily as of right now we still live in a free state. But every one of us saw what happened when it came to the quote unquote stimulus COVID-19 release bill, where things got hung up because old dogs continue to do old tricks where they just both sides try to pay off their the people who got them in office and put in pork, and we're funding the Kennedy Center and this, that, and the other thing. Have there been any concerns or any kind of like whistleblowers on people trying to sneak in some more hardcore gun bills into any of the new regulation that's going out?
Well, I'm not plugged in enough to really find out about stuff, at that level more so than, most people would be. I mean, I might be 1 or 2 days ahead of the general mainstream media timeline in some cases. But when it comes to gun stuff, because I do hear things and pick up on things through my network. But, I think that this is an opportunity to accomplish a lot in politics. And unfortunately, I think that people will use it to their own self-interests, which I think is what every organization does, every institution does, and ultimately every family unit does, and a lot of individuals do too. And they're going to do whatever they can do to help perpetuate their power base, appease the people that support them, and put them in those positions. And that's just what you call an unfortunate situation. So I really don't have all the answers. I've heard that potentially they want to revisit gun stores and gun ranges being essential businesses. I heard this from a somewhat reliable source, and apparently what is considered essential is revisited every couple of weeks.
Sure.
Based of the situation. And in my opinion, if you were to force gun stores to shut down, well, you're violating people's Second Amendment rights. I mean, ultimately, and I understand the reasoning behind it, but that's what this is about. It's about people being able to come. We're still getting first-time gun buyers walking in the store every day and buying firearms, and things haven't even gotten bad yet.
Yeah.
Things could get to a point where people really feel that things are deteriorating and they need to arm themselves. And I would personally hate to be in that situation and be the only person that didn't have the deadliest tool around for self-defense. I mean,
and I kind of think that's one of the things people are kind of waking up to. Now, us here in Florida, Gordon gets annoyed that he thinks I'm comparing this to hurricanes, but I'm not. But what I'm comparing is the living through an emergency. And people in Florida, Louisiana, parts of Texas, people who've gone through long spouts of emergencies, like, during Hurricane Irma, I was without power and water for 16 days. So I'm sleeping with my, it's 90 degrees out. I'm sleeping with my sliders open on my World War II cot with my Glock next to me because all my doors open. I took my privacy fence down, and I'm literally sleeping with my house open. And when the power goes away, looters come out to play. But when you live through enough of that situation, you realize that you are personally responsible for your and your family's not only protection, but food, water, and taking care of yourself and your neighbors. I've lived in so many neighborhoods in Florida where I didn't know a single neighbor. I live on the same street for 3 years, but once that hurricane came through and we lost power for a few days, everybody gets to meet each other because we want to know who's supposed to be in that neighborhood and who's not. And so I think a lot of people in different areas who this is kind of their first time experiencing something of this level where you got to prepare, there's shortages, you're told to stay home, they're kind of waking up to that too. Like, holy shit, in a true emergency, cops are going to be harder to find. They're going to be out dealing with this. And so I am my first line of defense. And I think a lot of people are waking up to that.
Absolutely. And now one of the interesting things about Nevada is it is in our Constitution, and it is a part of a Nevada revised statute law that they are not allowed to shut down gun stores in a state of emergency at all. So that was fought a little bit, but they have no legs to stand on. What's interesting, what's going on right now, I think the Fire Alarm Policy Coalition has been making a lot of very strong moves lately to help protect our rights. Well, they are suing the shit out of people for trying to shut it down.
Well, the sad thing is, though, politicians are very good about using loopholes. And I think you sent me the link to a YouTube channel, Guys in Tennessee, I believe it was. He's a prominent YouTuber, has a gun channel. He pre-ordered some rifles, custom-made rifles, like months ago. And they came in. The gun shops are still open, but you know what's not open? The Tennessee state background check. So even though he prepaid for these, he ordered them months ago, he went down to pick them up. He legally couldn't take them home because the background check system had been shut down.
Well, that doesn't surprise me one bit.
How long are you seeing background checks taking, or has it just gotten to a standstill?
To be quite honest, I didn't monitor that today, but they're still taking some time. Some people will come back literally instantaneously, and I even saw that still. We saw that even during the big rush, where the estimated time was 5 to 6 hours at its peak. So
Okay.
I don't know if it was worse in other states, but Florida's sells a lot
Out
of
here,
guns.
it was 10 days or so. It got, yeah, it jumped. But I want to change the subject a little.
Well,
since
real
I'm out
quick,
in
because I
Vegas.
want to change the subject too, but real quick, the story I always tell, which is kind of a humor antidote about the 3-day waiting period, is I get the concept of a cool down period. That way, if you're pissed off at somebody, you don't go out and buy a handgun and shoot them. But the very first firearm I bought, I was financially weighing, so I bought it on layaway. It took me like a year and a half to pay for this damn thing, and after I paid the final payment, I still had to wait the 3 days before I could take it home. I had like a year cool down period. So that's just a little by the book.
That's so funny because you can actually begin the 3-day wait at time the layaway begins, and I don't know if there's a certain percentage that has to be paid for or what, but at least in Florida and in the way we operate, because the transaction begins at that point, that satisfies a 3-day wait. Of course, you still have to pass a background check and all that.
It may have been a lack of knowledge of procedure
Right.
on the vendor's part.
Right. It totally could have been, or it could have been something that it could be the way that state operates too.
Well, it was here in
Because-
Florida.
Okay, well,
I don't know why your video on my program is like resizing itself, so I'm fighting it to keep you in part of this conversation. Interestingly enough, before we went live, we were talking about your neighbors being on the porch, and we want to kind of get off the gun thing real quick. And you're kind of talking about, and it's an interesting point that we're kind of getting back to the old ways of doing things, and it's kind of nice to see people changing things up a little bit and getting back to hey, putting the phones down and talking again.
mm-hmm.
You're right, actually, Don. This is the first time, Dave, because I am usually at work. I went to while doing some work around the house. I had to unfortunately go out to Lowe's today, out into COVID world, and it's the first time I noticed there's 4 or 5 families, just like 2 people each, just hanging out in the garages, looking very bored and quite concerned, obviously, as the rest of us. But usually out here in Vegas, everything's kind of locked down. Everybody's behind doors, and to see them open. And they're not necessarily talking to each other, but just hanging out in their garages, things are definitely changing,
Well, I went for
So,
Go ahead, Aaron.
I said it's a silver lining.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping we
And we
see
gotta
a
look
lot of lifestyle changes after that. One of the things I think is very positive, I'm concerned about what part of the day they're choosing to doing it, but I'm seeing a lot of first time walkers and joggers going out between 11 and 2 in the afternoon, the hottest part of the day, and getting their fitness in. And I hope they continue that after this thing, because I think a lot of people are kind of waking up to the fact that, hey, this is an immune type thing. And, I'm not at my best health. Perhaps maybe it would behoove me to lose a little weight to strengthen my immune system, because I don't get outside very much, or, I'm always in an office environment. And so I am seeing a lot more people, out walking and exercising. And like Gordon said, tonight when I was running, I always run the same path through my neighborhood, because from my house to the main road and the path I run is exactly 1 mile. And so I run down the same streets like 4 days a week. And today I seen people out in their driveways and out in the garages that I never seen before. And I just kind of throw them a, hey, nice to see you, what's up? And one of them gave me the old finger guns, and another guy waved me. And these are people I've lived in the same neighborhood for 3 years. I never even seen, but and my neighbor down the street, Vietnam vet, he was actually walking down trying to get some sun. And I was talking to him. He's a little concerned because he doesn't cook. And he's trying to find fast food restaurants that are open.
Wow.
And
Funny.
and
Yeah, I mean, too.
me personally, we've actually done a good job in my house of getting back to cooking and relying less on
Yes.
restaurants and foods. And that's going
I
to be
think
bad for the restaurant business, but I think it'll be good for families and having family dinners again.
That's another silver lining too. Is I think this having a conversation with this about this with my stepdad earlier, who works for the State Department. He's been there for probably almost 30 years now. But he did a lot of his tours in West Africa. Married an African woman, and his first tour was West Africa, then Haiti, and then back to Africa. And so, he's the kind of guy who, when his shirt wears out, he cuts the buttons off so his wife can sew them on his other shirts when he loses them, because he spends so much time around people who will wear their shirts until they literally fall off their bodies. And so this, he was saying jokingly, he's like, coronavirus, he's like, to people in Africa, it's just another day. Because they're so resilient and deal with such adversity on a daily basis. And so, this is the way most of the world lives, and in uncertain circumstances. And I'm not saying that this is the way that I want to live or that other people should live, but I think to a degree it's a little bit of a wake-up call in terms of self-reliance. And I think that's good for our society, because people have become a little too comfortable with this incredible thing we've had for a very short period of time, which is relative safety and opportunity for improvement and to raise families and do all these incredible, beautiful things that, we can do relatively safely, And I think that people become a little bit more for at least a week or so.
Yeah, it's so funny how, and I often think back to 9/11. Remember after 9/11, everybody had American flags flying on their car for about 2 weeks. And then on week 3, all those flags are laying in the road because they, the patriotism quickly wore off. I was thinking a few weeks ago, one of the best things to come out of this situation so far, the fact that we are actually canceling real life, that has actually canceled the cancel culture that we're being inundated with on Twitter and the news and the media for the last 6 months. This whole, oh, you said something to hurt my feelings, so now I'm going to cause you to lose your job. Yeah. And we older people, we're kind of thinking, this young crowd has had it so good for so long that they don't know what real adversity is. They weren't around during 9/11. They weren't around, during the Gulf War, Vietnam and all that stuff. And they've just had it too good for too long. And now they're getting to see, hey, real life can really kick you in the nuts, and there are some true real problems out there, and whatever someone said to offend you on Twitter doesn't mean shit when you can die from standing too close to somebody at the gas station.
I've jokingly said that Mother Nature's just bitch slapped the world.
Yeah.
To try to get us back in line and going down, a better path, because, and Don and I have talked about it, with all the post-dystopian or dystopian TV shows and movies, and then with the news, always, I say, basically crying wolf, not really that they're lying, but they're always pushing some kind of crisis. We've become numb. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the problem with us not reacting as quickly as we should have. And even our president, because we're all kind of in the same boat on that.
The boy who cried wolf.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, this is real.
Yeah, the media's cried wolf for so long.
Should be held accountable and maybe need to look at how they do things, because even today you can't find anything positive. Even if there's positive stuff out there, it's so buried that it's all fear, and it's driving the generalized anxiety of the country right now. My thing is
theory about that, if you want to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go for it.
I'll keep it short. I think it's data driven, and especially in a competitive market, because they're not all on the same page. It is mainstream media, but they're all competing against one another. I think it's data driven, and I'm right there with you complaining about it. I feel the same way, but at the same time, I'm among the same group of people gobbling it up every day. I mean, this is what
and I think we all are.
Open. This is what they watch, and it's data driven. I was just having this conversation with a good friend. I won't mention, but she's a local investigative reporter, and she said, we don't sit around and have these sync meetings to say, let's run all this negative stuff. She said, she goes, I could spend days working on a project, and I could run it, and it could be about, and I forget what it was she told me. She's like, that sounds really interesting. I'd watch that. She goes, yeah, but no one else will. No one, there's no interaction. But then we run 2 stories that are negative. I mean,
if it bleeds, it leads.
Well, Aaron,
it's like with products I sell in my store. I want to get rid of stuff that doesn't sell and give people more of what they want. It's data driven.
And you and I are kind of talking about that earlier when we were having our pre-interview phone call, that one of the reasons I started a positive motivational podcast in a separate entity is because when you have a general entertainment style podcast or radio show like this, there's a certain part of the audience who enjoys cynical stuff and satire and the sad stuff. And when you start posting, positive stuff, workout stuff, this and that, they quickly turn against you and they leave. And so instead of running people off of this podcast, I just started a completely different one for the people who like that sort of stuff. They can come and find it, and I don't have to worry about running off, followers and listeners of this podcast by presenting them with positive stuff. Because I'll be honest with you, when I started posting gym photos or talking about my runs and my 5K photos, my half marathon, I started losing followers. They started leaving. And the only reason I still do it is because I get private messages from people saying, thanks, you're motivating me, you're helping me out. I realize if someone your age can do it, I can do it too. And so even though I have lost quite a few people, especially on Instagram and Facebook, who get tired of seeing the positivity stuff, the fact that I'm actually impacting and helping a smaller group of people, I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to keep doing it. And, if you guys don't like it, I mean, I really want you to stay around, but the fact that I'm getting actual people reaching out to me in private and saying, thanks, keep doing what you're doing, that's why I do it.
Right. All right.
Well, Aaron,
got a quick question for you, Aaron.
Sure.
Before you leave, do you do the SHOT Show thing?
This is the first year we didn't go. I just felt like things were going so well at Shoot Center. I wanted to stay focused on that. Didn't really see the value in going. But, of course, there was a lot of cool stuff this year I missed out on. I had a lot of people message me and ask me if I was there. And I always really enjoyed going. So I missed it this year.
At least you missed the SHOT Show flu. I hear that is a real thing.
One more question before you leave. Out of all the firearms that came out this year, the newer stuff, what's the one thing that really impressed you? Is there a particular model? Because I know, for example, Gordon picked up the Springfield Armory Saint, and he's in love with it.
No. Well, I got that, and I actually ended up picking up a P320X carry, which I thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah, I really should probably have a standard break-in protocol and run, the top 20 handguns through it. That's just me being prudent. I oftentimes wonder, what did I accomplish today? I should be doing stuff like that. And so the reason why I say that is, I haven't, for example, run the Hellcat to a point where I could say I would endorse it. But the Hellcat is probably the first handgun I picked up in a long time. That and the 365 XL with the Romeo Zero that I just really enjoyed holding, shooting, just thought they were cool and fun. And a lot of times I forget, being immersed in the industry and coming from in a background where guns were just serious business, that shooting's fun. And those two handguns really stood out to me. And the Hellcat's just a very well-balanced, great little shooter.
I was interested in it, but I was like, man, I've already got two Springfields. I need to change it up. And I was looking at the P365. I was like, you know what? I want something a little more substantial because I was normally carrying an XDS. So I wanted something that had a little bigger, something Glock 19, but I'm just so tired of Glock. So I went with the P320, and I think it's fine.
I just bought a Zev OZ9 Standard because we're a Zev dealer now, and decided to take them on as a line, and we've sold a couple of them. And I really like it. I really enjoy it. The presentation with the Tridge gun, RMR, which is really the only handgun optic that I would tell people, yeah, you could trust this. That's not to say the other ones aren't great. That's just experience. But the presentation, being able just to present the gun and the dots, it's easy to see the dot, whereas the grip angle with the Glock can make it a little bit more challenging. So I've been really impressed with my OZ9. But OZ9s I probably aren't new to a lot of people. So
his name's Aaron Forum. He is the owner-operator of Shoot Center in Cape Coral, Florida. Aaron, where can people find you on social media? I know your Instagram channel is blowing up. I know you just recently are putting a little more effort into your YouTube channel. If people want to track you down, whether they're watching this video or listening to this podcast, where can they find more information about you and Shoot Center?
Yeah, we just started our YouTube channel. It's called Shoot_Center. My Instagram is Aaron_Forum, and I'm Cadre Aaron on Facebook because I still go Cadre for GoRuck, which is an awesome organization started by another Green Beret named Jason McCarthy. And our website, shootcenter.com, sell 50,000 products there. And, of course, all of our social accounts are Shoot Center. So check us out.
And if any of you guys are local and you have an M1 Garand and you're looking for some ammo to do some live firing, Aaron has it. He's got the Eagle M1 Garand, specially made 30-06 rounds, because as you know or may not know, you cannot just put a regular 30-06 in that M1 Garand or you will destroy your operating rod. So don't even bother going down to Walmart if they still have it and buying 30-06. You need that special ammo, and Eagle makes it and Aaron has it. So stop by and pick it up. Aaron, thank you so much for your time. And for you guys, we're